There are many reasons that a wonderful and productive relationship exists between teachers, the administration, and the board. And the next speaker, there is no one more responsible for this ongoing positive relationship. I'm delighted to bring to you New Canaan Education Association President, Mrs. Vivian Birdsall.
First of all, I want to thank the town bodies and the Board of Education especially, and our administrators. We have an incredible school system, and with your support and your respect, it's going to continue. And it's not lost on the NCEA. We have so much respect, so much is done by all of you, and everybody works so hard. It's just amazing, and everybody tries. Everybody tries. That's so unique. So thank you, from the teachers. Okay, everybody asks about the story, so I have another one for you. This year, I traveled back to the Nambali Magnet School in Western Kenya. The first time I went to Kenya, it was to do professional development in mathematics. I quickly realized I couldn't do this alone. The very bright, very dedicated teachers in this tiny part of the world wanted professional development in all subjects. So last year I brought two of our own teachers, Amy Rothschild and Deb Line, and they made a profound difference in this tiny school. But while I was there last year, something happened that haunted me. I became friends with one of the guards, who was my driver the first year I went. His name is Tobias. He's 36 years old, married with 8 children, and he asked me if I could help him become a better leader. So last year, I brought him the book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the 6th grade version. I explained who Jules Verne was and the mysteries surrounding his writing. I explained that he wrote about things in his books that had not been invented or discovered yet, and not until well after the author died. Tobias was delighted. But what could he do for me? I know, he said. I will teach you Kiswahili. Really? Hakuna Matata. That's as far as I got. So when we sat for our first lesson, he handed me back the book. Madam Vivian, would you please read this to me? Sure, I'll read it to you, but you have to read, I'll read the first chapter and you read the next chapter. So we started. I pointed to each word as I spoke it, and he nodded and smiled as I read. He read the second chapter with more fluidity than I expected. He pronounced the words exactly as I did. Then I assigned homework. I asked him to read as much as he had time for and underline any words he didn't understand. The next day, he wasn't in his uniform. He was dressed in his Sunday best. He told me he finished the book, of course he did, and was looking forward to understanding the words he had underlined. When I opened the book, he had lightly underlined quite a few words, but one of them was the word submarine. Then if you've read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, this would be very important. Very important word. I had a flurry of emotions. Why hadn't he told me right away? How could I be so ignorant to assume he had the same experiences I had? How could he not know what a submarine is? So I began to explain to this man in a tiny village in the middle of the African continent, whom I realized had never been anywhere more exotic than his own city of Nairobi. Okay, it's a boat, a very big boat that can hold many people, and they can sleep in the boat. He nodded. Okay, I waited for a response, and then I said, it can go underwater. He looked very confused. Okay, it's sealed in such a way that no water can get in the boat, and the people get inside, and then it sinks, and they can travel under the water for great distances. How is that? He looked astonished. He sat back in his chair with a thud, and then he suddenly laughed. And he shouted, "In the water?" Yes. "And the people aren't wet?" "No." "And you have seen this thing?" "Yes." "Amazing!" He leaned forward again and pointed. And this word, he said, he pointed to deck. That's the floor, what the floors of the submarine are called. And this word, hatch. I thought carefully about this. Okay, this kind of hatch is a hole cut in the deck of the submarine with a cover like a door that's placed over it. And you can open or close the hole in the floor with it, and when the submarine is underwater, it seals very tightly so no water can come in. And when the submarine's above the water, the people can open it and come out through the deck. I could see his mind working. A hole in the boat. Yes. And it opens? Yes. And it closes? Yes. And people come up, and people go down. Yes. He paused, deep in thought, and then he looked at me and said, "Is there a ladder?" "Yes," I said. And he laughed and laughed and laughed. At the end of the lesson, he explained that he was dressed to travel. He was leaving for Nairobi and would not be back before I left. He had to go to collect his niece's body. His niece, a girl in her early 20s, had died of a disease that I had never thought of as fatal. "I don't understand," I said to him. "There's medicine for that." "No, madam. There is no medicine available for that." I saw the grief pass over his face for a moment, and I stopped myself from saying anything more about it. But before he left, I gave him a leather-bound full version of 20,000 Leagues. I promised I would remember the Swahili lessons, and he promised to read the book many, many times. When I returned to the States, though, I investigated the treatment for the disease his niece had died of. The cure, yes, the cure, is a 3-week treatment of a specific antibiotic. No one needs to die of this disease. When I spoke to my friends about this, they all said, knowing me well, "You can't save everyone, Viv." I know that. So, I asked my doctor to go with me this year, Dr. Marianne Betty, and she asked her daughter Justine to come. Justine is a student at a college whose job it is to care for the farm animals at her school. And because I was bringing a doctor, my friend, Christina Casagrande from AmeriCares, organized 200 pounds of prescription drugs for us to take with us for free. So while I did professional development in mathematics, Dr. Betty saw 70 to 80 patients a day in a closet. And the medicine that did not exist for the disease Tobias's niece died from now exists in Nambali, Kenya. And there were people with this same disease who walked miles to see the doctor, and we were able to give them the medicine they needed. Some of these people have never seen a doctor in their lives. I can still see Dr. Betty coming out of the closet, looking for her next patient, asking, "Who's next?" Then she would rub her hands together and say in a loud voice, "Come on in, darling." And as she walked back to the tiny closet, holding her patient's arm affectionately, she would say, "Do you speak any English?" "That's okay. We'll figure it out." And Justine, she saved 18 rabbits from an outbreak of fungus, cured a 2-week-old calf with an abscessed leg, and gave a giant pregnant pig with a fever, a shot of penicillin. Justine's going to return in January to continue to educate farm staff. Like her mother, Dr. Betty's eldest daughter, Dr. Caitlin Betty, is planning a visit to the school in March. And Dr. Mary Ann Betty will return at least 2 times in the next year. We'll have 3 visits from doctors this year at our tiny school. No, we can't save everybody. Reverend Evelyn Wukasama started the Nambali Magnet School 8 years ago. It was her dream. She also knows you can't save everyone. She just wanted to save some kids. She knows that education is the key. The students at the school are among the top scorers in what is Kenya's equivalent of our state testing. Half of these students are orphaned from the AIDS epidemic, and most would probably not have survived without the intervention of the Nambali Magnet School. Yes, education is the key. Saving a life is a sacred calling. But when those lives are saved, then what? Do we leave them to ignorance and poverty? No. Evelyn Wukasama gave them a place to learn so they could save themselves. Schools depend on teachers to bring them out of ignorance. You are among the most highly educated teachers in the United States. We are so good at content in this district that we find ourselves in professional development looking at cutting-edge ways to teach. We don't just present content. We constantly diagnose what a student's thinking. We document our findings and remediate students, sometimes with another professional who has a very specific expertise. We have students in the same classroom at the same time with such diverse needs that we no longer write lesson plans. We create learning environments. Every day, every period, for every child. Can you see it? Do you know what you do? Education is the key to everything. So in all the preparation and data collection and the giant pool of acronyms, when you're in the middle of it this year, come back to these words from Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. In a time of such uncertainty, you are important to the future because you are a teacher. And so for our little part of the world, remember this too. Together, we are one voice. Thank you.